Thank you. It is impressive listening and watching to what the university is up to. I would just say as an opening thought, because sometimes people like to contrast what my views may be and what some of the academics or administrators might think. I want to start with just the point that other than Earl Warren, I'm the only governor that did graduate as an undergraduate from the University of California. My mother went to UC herself when, of course, there was no tuition. And my father wanted to go, but he couldn't afford it. So he had to go to work and go to night law school, which he never did go to college. So I've been appreciating the University of California since as long as I can remember. And this month, November, marks the 40th year since I began to dig into the university budget. It was in November of 1974 that I first traveled to Sacramento, and as the incoming governor, started to work with the Department of Finance and going over at great length the university's budget. And I can say that as I finished my 12th year as regent and as governor, it is a complicated budget. And this week, as I spent several days digging further into the costs and the various aspects of the university budget, I continue to learn. And I don't want to give the idea that this is a very easy thing to grasp. And so I really appreciate the work you're doing, Madam President and Nathan. There's a lot of accomplishment here, and I appreciate that very much. And I want to say about the administrative costs, over $600 million. Now, before that exercise was embarked upon, I don't think there were that many people who thought that magnitude of savings could be found. But they were found. And with a certain amount of imagination and persistence and good work, you generate the savings that you do. And that's good. Now, and I don't want to just say it's all about savings, because this is about a great university. And in fact, to show you how much I was influenced by the university on my honeymoon, which was only about, I don't know how many years, not too many, 2005, I took my wife into Northern California, and we stayed overnight with my political science teacher, who lived in Mendocino. So I am pretty well steeped in University of California traces and sentiments and sentiments. It's very much a part of the way I think, and I do appreciate it, and I love the life of the mind, and I love the exchange with the university. I know it probably doesn't give you pleasure, but this gives me great pleasure. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy that I'll be here for another 4 years. But I do want to say that I'm not saying it's easy, but the university does have close to $7 billion, and 7 years ago it was more like $5.5 billion. Now that's been made up mostly by the students in tuition. But when you look at the overall budget, it's $1 billion more than you had before. And on a spending basis, that's 27%. That's more than inflation. Now, I know Nathan will tell me yes, but a lot of that's pension. I got that. Most of it's pension. Well, there's our financial aid, but these are all costs that any enterprise has to look at. Pensions are a cost. And to serve the public purpose, you have to make it, since if you can't cut your costs, you have to find subsidies to help those who are increasingly coming into the university. And by the way, at that same time, when you talk about the state disinvestment, don't neglect the Cal Grant program that contributes somewhere in the neighborhood of $800 million. And if you put the 5% tuition increase, that will cost the state $45 million just to offset that tuition increase. So the state is putting in a huge amount of money, and then the middle class scholarship, that represents several $100 million more. that will be coming on board. And so the thing that as I see here, because I am going to vote against the 5% tuition increase, and I vote against, and I want to say why I think there's a great opportunity. By the way, I've looked at the budget, and as I calculated, if we continue with our program and you don't get to the 5%, that's $120 million, and you've identified 80 million other funds. So that's 200 million new money that you'd have for this core program. So there is money available. We're not talking that there's a scarcity here that makes it impossible to live with. So there is money, and there'll be arguments about how much is there, and do we compare ourselves? Who do we compare? What are the salaries? I mean, just the retiree health care alone is 65% higher than the competitive institutions. In terms of the salaries, they are 10% below the market. But if you exclude Harvard and Yale and some of those colleges and just compare yourselves with public universities, University of California looks very competitive. And I would say, with respect to, say, take a place like Stanford, they're spending $80,000 per student. If it becomes the goal that not only Berkeley and UCLA have to catch up with Stanford and Harvard, you have a long, long way to go. 5% won't even get you close to that. So we do have a different model, and it's a public university serving the students and their families and the people and the engine of research and imagination and creativity and all the patents that we're seeing at 5 a day. I didn't realize that. That's pretty darn amazing. As a matter of fact, I just received the foreign minister of Poland last night in my office, and she brought 200 business people over here to the Bay Area to somehow soak up some of this creativity and make some business deals and do some way can they transfer some of the greatness of what we have in California, and in no small measure that's due to the University of California. So that's something I want to enhance in every way I can. So I've had this discussion about the cost structure, the phrase that catches my attention, and I think it irritates Nathan. But in any event, so I'm going to put forth a proposal, not for adoption today, because I think under the rules this should be agendized for January. And if someone would, I'd like to hand this out today. This is a proposal. I call it for the creation of a select committee to develop proposals to reduce the university's cost structure while increasing access and quality. And that the committee would, the members would be designated by the president of the Board of Regents, which is me, and the president of the university, which is Janet. And the staffing would be provided by the Office of the President, jointly with the Department of Finance. And so this looks toward a joint effort, a collaborative effort, where our best minds could be put to work on looking at proposals that, and also would seek outside experts within the university and outside. And I'm asking this committee, assuming the Regents will support this, to look into 5 different initiatives. One, to identify pathways for undergraduate students to complete degrees in no more than 3 years. That's one pathway. Secondly, to implement consistent lower division major requirements across all campuses as recommended by the committee in the future, as well as policies that will guarantee admission with junior status to any California community college student who earns an associate degree. Now, this might not always save money for the university, but it can save overall money for the state, which then would free up more money to make available to the university. Third, offer a wide range of online courses enrolling large number of students far beyond the capacity of any seat-based classroom. Fourth, expand policies that grant unit credit to students who demonstrate academic competence through work experience, military training, or other appropriate learning pathways. And finally, and maybe most difficult, delineate in some reasonable detail, cross-campus collaboration and campus-specific specializations that over time would provide differentiation among the campuses. In addition, a range of disciplinary consolidations should be carefully considered. These goals were suggested or implied by the report on the Commission of the Future. And then it sets some timetables. And if we could just pass this out. Got a few going this way. Here. So, I understand this has been a lot of back and forth, and I would like to look at this not at a rhetorical level or an abstract level, but a very concrete level. And I also understand there are no silver bullets that we can fire in 6 months or 12 months. This takes a period of time. But because it's so hard to work change in complex institutions, that oftentimes the pressure of not having enough money can force creativity that otherwise can't even be considered. I know the state, when we had a $27 billion deficit, we had to make changes, and not just cuts, but changes in the way we do business. So in a world where we see such radical change, I mean, IBM felt confident until Apple came along and very much undermined mainframe computers. And lots of things happen. The information, which is the university's business, is now available on a very small microprocessor that 50 years ago was inconceivable. So I think we have to, in the spirit of the university, approach the structure and the design and the delivery of what we do around here in the most open-minded way. And that's the spirit in which I make this proposal for a select committee to go forward and to look at what we could possibly do. And I do think there's enough money. I think $200 million would be quite adequate. And that's why I'm going to vote against the 5% tuition. But I'm not saying that we don't need a sustainability plan and we don't need more revenues somewhere along the line. I recognize that. But I have looked at the sustainability plan, and the only thing it did was say, okay, if you don't get the tuition, then we'll just take out-of-state students. I don't think you considered alternatives to the structure over time that could actually lower your costs while increasing access and improving quality. That may sound like a lot, but it sounded like a lot when someone said you could put a mainframe computer on something a fraction of a fingernail. That was unthinkable. So there are ways to do things. And in a world, by the way, I just have to say, when I walk down my office, through my office in the horseshoe there, it strikes me because it's very different than it was when I first walked through there 40 years ago.